I'm Jeff,
I'm Sean.
and today on Control Alt Delete, do you have an old PC that's been sitting in your closet?
Dust it off a little bit.
Because today we're going to show you exactly how to take that old PC and turn it into a server. Not only any server, but a NAS server.
With a big hard drive.
You may ask what a NAS server is.
What's a NAS, Jeff?
That's a network access share.
I never knew what that meant.
Well, now you
I
do.
appreciate it.
We're going to show you guys exactly how to do that step by step. Not only that, we're going to remote in it from outside of your network and show you how to build a virtual machine with Kali Linux.
And share with your friends, like I did.
Stay tuned.
All right, so here, first things first, we want to make sure that we have a good SSD already installed into the device. Whether you're using an operating system of Windows or Linux is entirely up to you. I prefer Linux, but for this tutorial, we went with Windows 10 because we already had it. It was simplistic. We also went out and bought an 8TB hard drive to replace the other pre-existing drive in this device. You want to make sure that all of your SATA cables and your power cables are hooked up properly. Now, you may run into an issue where we did, where you don't have a place to put your SSD. Well, you're gonna have to find a place. For us, we tried to mount it on top and realized that we couldn't do it, so then we went in and 3M'd it on top of the power supply, as you can see here. Once we were done with that, we were able to close the device and then go ahead and boot it up to see if everything worked. Alright everyone, so now that we have our 8TB drive installed, you may ask what the next step is. Well, the next step is with that new drive, we've got to format it. We got to format it so that our system recognizes it. How do we do that? We go to disk management. So you're going to right click on your start, it's going to prompt a menu bar, you go up to disk management, click it, and then it'll prompt you for the disk to format it. We're going to go ahead and format this as a GPT partition. Once you format this as a GPT partition, you will see that the drive at the bottom will not have a red X anymore, and you'll still have unallocated space. What you want to do is you want to right click on the unallocated space and allocate that space and go ahead and letter your drive. And what I mean by that, for you guys out there, is that means that you create a letter for your drive, whether it's drive E or drive F or G. Once you create the letter for your drive, you'll be able to go back into your system and the system will recognize that drive underneath your main bootable drive. Now that we have our network E labeled network share set up, you can see here that it's a healthy partition with 8TB of storage. So what do we do next? Well, we're going to go in here and make sure that we can see this. If for some reason you can't see your drive, then you must have missed a step. Make sure to hit us up, drop a comment, or go back through this video and see what steps that you missed. Now that we can see this, we need to create a folder. This folder is going to act as a central access point for you and your friends to drop any media files, whether it be pictures, documents, or movies, music, whatever the case may be. For us, we're going to name ours share folder. Now that we have our share folder created, we got to make our network discoverable. How do we do that? We go to network settings, advanced network settings. Then we're going to slide down here and we're going to click advanced sharing. For this, make sure that your private networks are set up to where it's discoverable across all your private networks. Me personally, I would not do your public or all networks. This could be a security risk, one that you don't want. So just set it to private. This will allow this folder to be viewable across your entire network from any device on your Wi-Fi or network. Now the last step here is to make this viewable. So we're going to go to permissions, right click, permissions. We're going to go to sharing, and under here you see the share button. you're going to click share button, this drop down menu, you're going to select everyone. You're going to add this. Once you add this, you're going to push read and write. This gives them the ability to read and write information within this file folder. Once you do that, select apply and OK. Now this is completely viewable to anyone on your network. Now we need to test our share. We need to see if we can access it from another computer on our network. And as you can see here, we're on another computer on the same network, and we can see server 1. This is the server we created. And we're going to click on that, and well, what do you know? We can actually see our share folder. We can also see the public folder. But inside the share folder, we created a test folder, and as you can see here, it works perfectly fine. Now that we know that we can access it on the network, well, we need to be able to access it remotely from outside of the network. You can use Microsoft RDP, or you can use what we use. I like to use the TeamViewer. So TeamViewer is an application that you can download off the web. It's completely free. And you will download the host viewer to whatever device that you're remoting into, and whatever device that you're remoting from, you would download the TeamViewer application on that device. As you can see here, Sean is remoting in to the server outside of our network using TeamViewer from his phone. Alright, as promised, we're going to do a virtual machine on this server. First things first, we're going to go to Oracle, and we're going to go to the VirtualBox, because that is my favorite. There's a ton of them out there. If you have a favorite that you use, then use it. But for this tutorial, Oracle's VirtualBox is simplicity, and it's easy to use, and it's one of my favorites. So we're going to go ahead and download the Windows host for the VirtualBox. Now we already have the VirtualBox downloaded, but you're going to download it, run the installer, and then once you get complete, we'll move on to the next step. Alright, with our VirtualBox downloaded, the next step is what image are we going to put on it? Well, you can use Windows 10, Windows 11, or you could even use Parrot OS. But for this tutorial, we're going to use Kali. So we're going to go to kali.org, and we're going to download the ISO file for Kali. Now, what this does is, essentially back in the day we had CD-ROMs. Well, this acts as a CD-ROM as an installer to install this image directly into your virtual machine. As you can see here, we already have Kali Linux ISO file downloaded, and it's on our desktop ready to go. Alright, now we've got Oracle's VM virtual machine host up and running. We're going to go and select New. From this, it's going to launch another window. And inside this window, you're going to name your virtual machine. You can name it whatever you want. For us, we're going to name ours SpyNet. It just sounds appropriate. Make sure that you have your ISO file in a location that's easily accessible, because in your ISO image file dropdown is where you're going to be inserting the ISO file of your choice, whether it be IE Windows or, for us, Kali Linux. Next, we got to choose a place for this to live. We want this to be accessible across our entire share. So we're going to put ours in Drive E. That's where it's going to live. We're going to name this folder that we're going to put it in Virtual Machine SpyNet, and that will be where our virtual machine lives. From there, your type and your version will depend upon the ISO file that you have. For ours, it's going to be Ubuntu, and it's going to be a Linux. If you didn't already, make sure to go to ubuntu.com and download that ISO file as well to your desktop. Now here we got the hardware. We have memory and processors. I like to give mine just a little bit more wiggle room. Keep in mind, this is only for the VM while utilizing it. It does not disrupt your machine itself. So we're gonna give ours a hefty 3000 meg of memory and roughly 3 CPUs. This should give us a nice comfort zone to operating our virtual machine without any hiccups. Moving on to the virtual hard disk, it's going to ask for 25 gigs of disk space. You can give it more disk space if you want. There's no real reason to. This is the minimum it's asking for. Just give it the minimum. Go ahead and select next, and you're going to move to your summary. Now you're at your summary, you see your base memory and your processors. Go ahead and hit finish, and you've successfully set up a virtual machine. Now we're going to launch our virtual machine, and if done correctly, we should get the image card of the ISO file for Kali Linux. Well, there you go, guys. We got Kali Linux. But from here, we're going to do a graphical install. Go ahead and select graphical install and begin the installation process. Alright, in the beginning of your installation process, you're going to get prompts similar to this one. Go ahead and click the appropriate responses and keep moving forward in the installation process. You're going to come to a prompt like this. This is going to be setting up the user account for Kali Linux. In here, you can set up your host name to be whatever you want. For us, we're going to name ours Spy Kitty. It sounds fitting. Next, you're going to move on to the domain. You don't really need to set up a domain because we're using a VM. Next, we're going to come into our user name. You may set this up as admin or Big Daddy or whatever, but for us, we're going to make this Spy Kitty as well. We're going to speed this up just a hair. This is just us figuring out and toggling what name we're really going to use. We did intend to use other names, but we did go with the Spy Kitty. Moving on to the next step, we'll be creating your password. You can create whatever password you want. We created something a little simple for us to use. Now that we got our password created, it's going to ask you what time zone you're in. Go ahead and select the time zone that you're in, and it's going to do a quick disk detection. Once it does the disk detection, you're going to get this right here. This is going to ask you to use the entire thing. Go ahead and click continue. Go ahead and select the disk of which you want it on. And go ahead and select the recommended settings for this as well. Now, to complete this, it's going to partition this disk just for our Kali Linux. So you're going to select yes and continue. Now the install begins. Further along in our installation process, we're going to go ahead and we're going to fast forward this to the end so we can get to the final reveal. Right here, you're going to get prompt for this window. Don't change anything, just click that continue button and keep moving this process along. Towards the end of your install, you're going to get prompted to install a GUID. Go ahead and hit that continue button. It's going to install the GUID, and then it's going to complete your install. Once completed, drop down, hit that continue button, and it's going to do a reboot sequence. Once rebooted, now you can go in and launch Kali Linux in your virtual machine. When you launch Kali Linux, go ahead and put those credentials in that you made earlier in this video and launch Kali. Now that we have our Kali Linux and virtual machine completely installed, really want to see if we can remotely log into it. Well, what do you know, guys? Bottom right of our screen, we've got Sean using our TeamViewer application from his phone, remotely logged in to our server, launching our virtual machine with Kali Linux. He's going to launch our Kali Linux and input the username and password that we created earlier. With our password and credentials accepted, now we have successfully launched Kali Linux remote using our phone. Well, there you have it, guys. This is how you build your own server virtual machine with Kali Linux.
Jeff, what did you do for us today?
Well, in conclusion, what we have done is we've taken that old rusty bucket of a computer and we've turned it into this.
This is cool.
This is your own home server hosting 8 terabytes of NAS storage that you and your friends can log into remotely whenever you want. On top of that, what else do we have here, you might ask? We got a virtual machine running with Kali Linux as an operating system.
On your own server.
On my own server. You know how awesome that is? Because that provides you an awesome playground for you and your buddies to practice ethical hacking or any other skills that you might look into. So, in conclusion, we've got Kali Linux operating system on a virtual machine that we can remote in anywhere, anytime, any place on our own server.
And you can crash it and break it like I did mine. And guess what? You can do a new one. No problem.
So, if you have comments, drop them below. Let us know what you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Sean.